let's bring in political analyst Bill Crane. Bill, thank you for joining us. Bill, what is the significance of the renaming of the Department of Defense to the Department of War from a political messaging point of view?
Domestically, I don't think it's going to raise a whole lot of attention or eyebrows, but if you think in terms of translating the difference between the word defense and the word war, with our allies as well as our adversaries overseas, it's a very vast difference. We had the Department of War all the way up through 1949 and 1947. U.S. Air Force, our last service branch, was created independently. Prior to that time, we had a Secretary of the Army, a Secretary of the Navy. The Air Branch was the Army Air Corps, the Naval Air Corps, and we consolidated all of that under a civilian command and a Secretary of Defense, renamed the department under Harry Truman's presidency, and started building the Pentagon on land that was part of Arlington, the residence and plantation of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. So there's a lot of history in the creation of the Department of Defense. But the main difference was Harry Truman wanted us to be seen as a defender of democracy, a defender of liberty. We were involved in the Marshall Plan and rebuilding Japan by that time, as well as rebuilding Berlin, East Berlin in particular, West Berlin having been already part of Allied command. And it essentially is Donald Trump and another marketing move to say abroad, we're the strong man. And if we want these tariffs or we want these treaties, you're going to give it to us because we're the strong man. I think it's a lot of expense and a lot of stationery and websites and a lot of other things will have to be changed that won't make a lot of difference domestically, but in an already dinged up reputation internationally with some of our closest allies on trade issues, I don't think it's helpful.
And how do you think this will affect public perception of U.S. military policy?
I think we got more of an issue with using U.S. military in domestic situations, as we're seeing now in Washington, D.C., and perhaps Chicago or New Orleans soon, to be involved in domestic law enforcement. That's causing quite a few ripples here. Donald Trump has renamed a bunch of military bases. He wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. Popular among his supporters, not so much among the others, but most people on something like this sort of shrug. The meaning or the perception of the Department of Defense doesn't change much because you call it the Department of War inside the United States. We're not going back to that old structure with 3 cabinet secretaries for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. But it does say externally, a Department of War has a much more machismo, jingoistic, America first foreign policy statement to it that, again, I don't think is helpful for the United States.
And could this rebranding influence how Congress and the local public approach defense spending and oversight?
I think it'll be an issue, though it won't be a particularly important one in the 2026 midterms ahead. I think Democrats will stress the significant budget cuts that a number of social spending programs, particularly Medicare, is resulting from the big, beautiful spending bill, though some of those cuts won't go into effect until after the 2026 midterms. They're looming. At the same time, there were significant increases in spending to halt illegal immigration and on national defense. So in that regard, yeah, I think there'll be a debate less about the name, more about the substance.
And Bill, have you seen any reactions from military leaders, defense officials about the proposed change? What do you perceive?
I think if you were to talk to line military, it wouldn't significantly alter their mission because it doesn't change what they do every day. I do believe they want to be seen more as a liberty's torch in the sky. They want to be seen as the protectors of democracy and the American way, not an imperialistic country that comes and plant the flag. And most of the time that we were under the name Department of War, we were still colonizing places like Hawaii, Alaska, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, the Philippines, and we're not really in that business anymore. So again, I think it's much more of concern as how this is perceived globally than how the name change will be perceived domestically.
Bill Crane, thank you for your time and insights.
Take care.